Hi, everyone. My name is Jeff Roberts. I am not Don Saucier. I am the GRA here at the Teaching and Learning Center, and we're excited you found your way to the PD Series event today. Before we talk about what's in today's event, I'd like to tell you about a couple of things at the TLC. First, you have an opportunity to learn or to earn a PD professional development certificate, and um, and you can also, for faculty and staff, you can also become a TLC fellow, which is, you can promote others teaching and learning. My colleague Kara Matu will drop those links into the chat um, as I'm talking. Just a few other things before we get started. So the TLC also has a hub on Teams. So we use it to just sort of chat and do announcements and ask each other questions. It's a really cool way to engage with us on a really sort of casual in a casual way. So if you attend one of these events, I'll add you to the Teams hub. If you don't want to be part of it, just send me an email or a direct message on Teams, and I'll be happy to remove you from that. But like I said, it's a very casual, low-key way to engage with the TLC. One other thing we have coming up is on Monday, May 11th. That's the Monday of finals week. We have the SOTL Showcase, and SOTL stands for the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning. And that's just an opportunity for faculty to present posters, give talks, etc., on any sort of innovative teaching practices, any research that they've done around teaching and learning. And we'd love to have you. We're going to be putting out a call today with a link to the Qualtrics survey, so you can send us a quick proposal. It's a very, very short survey. It's a very short proposal style. And so, yeah, we'd love to have you involved in that as well. So please, if you're interested, feel free to fill that out and or get in touch with any of us at the TLC if you have any questions about it. Let's see. Before I get into today's topic, next week we'll have Dr. Lisa Melander from the Department of Sociology. She'll be talking about 6 types of applied learning. So that'll be an exciting sort of hands-on, quick takeaway kind of professional development talk. But today, I'm very excited to introduce you all. I think you probably all know her, to Christina van Ittersum. She's going to be talking about the alphabet soup of digital accessibility and using accessible course materials, something that we all need to adopt sooner rather than later. So with that, I will hand it over to you, Christina. Feel free, take it away.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, I see lots of familiar folks, familiar profile pictures, and familiar folks. So I will say, thank you guys for being here. Many of you have been to our trainings before. This is not the most basic accessibility training you'll ever see, which is good because most of you know the basics already. If you don't know the basics, we do trainings every Thursday, most Thursdays, excuse me. And where did my chat go? There we go. And I'll give you more information on that at the end. And then if you are curious about the basics, this is our accessibility workbook. If there are parts of it that are missing, if there's other things you want to know about digital accessibility, let us know. So we're doing a more advanced topic today, and one that falls outside the realm of Ally. This has nothing to do with Ally, but this does have everything to do with digital accessibility. So we're first going to talk about sort of the alphabet soup and familiarize ourselves with all of the crazy acronyms that seem to plague the tech world in general. And then we're going to talk about VPATs. VPATs are the main thing we're going to talk about today. And it's how we can tell if a tool or a resource is accessible or not. So in the back of your mind, at the end of this, you want to look at one of your tools, something that you have picked from one of your courses. We could do that. We could look at that. So let's chat. So WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or the acronym that really buy another vowel and it would be excellent. These are the international standards used to make the web more accessible for people and agents. So that's also just the internet. Search engines are more accessible and more usable. AI agents potentially are more benefit from WCAG as well, but that's not the point of them. When it says agents, it's more about search engine and the tools that use assistive technology that uses digital content. So the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, the W3C, this is the World Wide Web Consortium. It develops the standards and guidelines that helps everyone use the web. It's not just about digital accessibility. Their group actually does a lot for internationalization, privacy, and security. They make the web work everywhere. So if you're in somewhere that has really poor internet access, you don't have high internet speed, these standards, this group is working to help the internet work in those places as well. So they're awesome. They're great. As a part of the W3C, another acronym, the WAI, that's the Web Accessibility Initiative. And these are the people who make WCAG. So W3C does a lot of stuff. Their main thing is WCAG. This subgroup is the group that is focused on building those standards. So WCAG, those standards, have another acronym. They fall into four areas. We want our content to be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. You guys know this, most of you are pros at this point, but there's 3 guidelines under each of these areas, and those are going to match up to our VPAT, which we'll talk about here in a second, but these are the goals for web content. Other acronyms you may have heard recently, NVDA and JAWS. These are 2 types of assistive technologies that are out there. There's a whole bunch more. These are just 2 of the most popular ones that you might hear of folks interacting with. So JAWS is job access with speech. That one's a little bit more expensive, and it's $1,000 for someone like me a year to use. It's, I think, $100 a year if you actually are blind or have one of the other disabilities. So these types of assistive technologies, we think of them as screen readers, and they are, but they also help people navigate the web. So if you have ambulatory issues, maybe you have cerebral palsy or an injury, or with a spinal cord injury, you might also use some of these tools. NVDA is the non-visual desktop access. That one's free. If you want to download it, it's pretty difficult to use it. If you are a sighted person, you really have to commit to about 40 hours of I am going to practice this with, maybe my screen off, and I'm just going to use keyboard only. So I can do some demos of it. We won't be doing any today because it's a lot in a Zoom environment. But if you ever want to play with it and just see, like, what is this like? You can do it. Again, it's not just for folks who are blind. Most of these assistive technologies and digital accessibility in general, it's not just for blind folks. Most people who use the web most people who are using the web with a disability have a cognitive disability, because most people with disabilities have cognitive disabilities. So there's a lot of intersectionality here. But our main focus today is the VPAT. So this is a voluntary product accessibility template. It's a tool. It's a tool that tells someone like me or you don't have to be a crazy expert in it. I'm going to show you some easy things you can look for, that ensures that we can tell if a technology is going to work for someone with disabilities. It was created by the ITI, that's Information Technology Industry Council. It's based on WCAG. There are versions of VPATs for some European standards that are out there as well, which are pretty congruent with WCAG, but they have some separate ones. The BBC, of all things, has like the gold standard when it comes to mobile accessibility. So there's other versions of the VPAT. In general, you're going to be seeing, what you'll see has WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Europe's like a year or 2 ahead of us when it comes to digital accessibility standards that are like legalized. Another term you're going to hear is HECVAT. This one isn't as popular, but it's very similar. It's like a VPAT. So it's a Higher Education Community Vendor Assessment Toolkit. EDUCAUSE. EDUCAUSE is great. Folks like me, Scott Finkeldye, they go to the EDUCAUSE conference every year. They have all sorts of good resources. The HECVAT is a little bit more, has some other concerns other than just accessibility. Um, it is also looking at things like privacy for like student concerns, like, hey, will this technology violate FERPA? Is it going to share my student information inappropriately? So HECVAT has some slightly different concerns. Another great tool, not as popular. All right, so most often you're going to hear people say VPAT. I'm going to keep saying VPAT. It's just habit. But the VPAT, that template, it is a template. When you use the template, you then get an accessibility conformance report. So the VPAT is essentially the rubric, and then the result is your grade. So that is the assessment. So the accessibility conformance report. VPAT and ACR are basically for us interchangeable. So use a VPAT to make an ACR. It's not just for web products. If you have, um, a kiosk, like a digital kiosk or something that people have to use, you can have a VPAT for that as well. So it's not just web products, it can be other types of technologies as well. So we're going back to WCAG for a second here. When you're looking at a VPAT, there's going to be different levels of division. We'll call it, people will say single A, double A, or triple A. So single A, these are just the levels of standards within the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So the first level would be press the green button. So not just the green buttons floating out in space and you're just letting people assume, but you give them some sort of instructions. You tell people what they need to do. So that's basic. Most websites, ideally, if they're just using good standard normal practices, will be at single A. Double A is really, this is the most important one. This is where we're going to see gaps and where there's opportunity for growth. So if it is double A, it's going to be a little bit more advanced. So color, for example, one thing could be the color and contrast of text and elements would need to be like a 3-to-1 ratio. I'll show you an example of what I mean here in a second. Triple A is not required. Double A is required per WCAG 2.1. Again, Europe's on WCAG 2.2, but that's the addition of it. But double A is what we're looking for. Triple A is going to be more advanced. So I promised you guys some testing. So I want to show you two things. So first is this compliance level. You can test the compliance of something yourself. When we're going to look at VPATs, we definitely want to be seeing how robust it is. There's some checks that we can do that it might not be doing itself. We need to have some manual testing. So I want to show you a failure of PowerPoint real quick. So I'm going to go on this review tab, and this is in all Microsoft products. I'm going to go to review, and I'm going to go to check accessibility, and it's going to open up this accessibility assistant. I find it easier in PowerPoint, show only issues on this current slide. And, well, it says for the whole thing, but even for this slide, hard to read text contrast. It says, nope, you don't have any hard to read text contrast here. But is that true? So Canvas is, excuse me, not Canvas. Microsoft isn't perfect at checking this. It is checking the text to the background. So white on black is accessible. This blue on black is accessible. I clicked this link so it's turned purple. That's on black accessible. However, we know that it's not. I can just tell that kind of looks shady. Doesn't look quite right. So how do we check that? So I'm going to go to this element. This is just a box I have in the background. And our fill. And I'm going to go to more fill colors. So this is the color green that I have right now. So you may have seen me use this before, but we have WebAIM. WebAIM is the best. The W3C is super advanced. That's the nerds who are making it. This WebAIM is out of Salt Lake, University of Utah. It's basically one of their extension offices, their WebAIM. If you need help, go here. Everything I know is from here. That is a good place to start. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that green, And then let me make sure that's the right. This is the blue of that text. Yep, that was the one. So it fails. So it doesn't even say if it fails at level A or not. Level A is not concerned with color. Double A is concerned with color, and triple A as well. So this fails. PowerPoint wasn't catching for it, but we can catch for it. So sometimes if you're seeing some elements and you're playing around with something and you're like, hey, those colors look weird. The VPAT says that their colors are accessible, but I don't think so. You can test it. Something you can do super easily. Also, some companies don't have VPATs, which is okay. We'll talk about that here in a minute, but it fails. So in fact, we would need this to be a lighter blue for it to pass. So it basically needs to be almost white for that contrast. So AAA. AAA is above and beyond, and that's something you would do if you like literally were a school for the blind. Um, some of the things at AAA are meant specifically for folks with disabilities. So they're going to be a lot more stringent and a lot more strict. An example of AAA this is ThingLink. This is a super fun tool. This is, oh, it's probably going to be slow because I've had it loading here all day, but you can like do this little tour around the river. And they also have an accessibility feature. So I'm going to open up this accessibility menu. And when I go into this, it's going to be a totally different version of this. And it's going to have an accessibility menu here. So this is AAA. This is an example of AAA. You don't have to have this entire menu, but maybe I need the contrast to be higher because of the type of low vision or color blindness I have. You can usually change the fonts. Where did my fonts go? You can change your fonts. You can do dyslexia-friendly fonts. I know lots of folks, if you're on your Kindle, you can try using, if you ever have a Kindle or something, screen reader, you can try this dyslexia-friendly font. So that's going to remove all the serifs from the fonts. So this is AAA, where we're putting a lot, we're just like making sure it's super accessible for everyone, or we're giving the user options to control their experience, and it puts them in charge. So AAA is a little bit more advanced. You're not going to see that. But back to the PowerPoint. All right, so this is why manual testing is important. All right. I feel like we've got mostly faculty here today. If you're a faculty member who has the privilege of being in charge of a section of your website, your department's website, this is what Site Improve looks like. So if you ever see Site Improve, it's basically Ally for websites. It's works a little bit differently, but they organize their content based on AA, and we'll talk about ARIA here in just a second. So that's just some examples of what it looks like. So simple things like page title is not descriptive. Like you need a page title to be descriptive. You can't just have title as your title. You want an actual page title. So a little bit more simple. And then when you get to AA, it's going to be a little bit more prescriptive. So heading is not descriptive, is going to be what we're looking for. Or word spacing, like word spacing, you got to have word spacing. And then AAA, so this is the things that are font sizes fixed. Again, we want to put that control in the users, like we saw with that ThingLink example. It's just a little learning module tool, and you could change your font size. You are in control. Making sure that folks can do that puts them in control of their accessibility experience. All right, so yeah, AAA is just going to have even higher ratios when it comes to color. There's some other specifications it has. Another thing you're not going to see as much, but I'll show you a few examples of where I wish there were more, is an A tag. So that is, it's like an ACR, except it's for authoring. So Canvas has an A tag. Canvas is like, hey, we are accessible for faculty who are making the content. It's pretty similar. There's a different subgroup that is in charge of A tag, but they work very much in tandem with the WAI. I wish there were more of these. Some websites, some CMSs will have them. So LMS would be Canvas, CMS would be a content management, and that's for websites. Which there are more of these, you may see them. All right, another acronym that you saw earlier was ARIA. So ARIA is Accessible Rich Internet Application Suite. ARIA is not for the faint of heart. It drives me bonkers. I make mistakes in it all the time. I will not train faculty on how to use it. I promise you, I am not a fully fledged web developer. I can do fun things, but this is like something a developer might do. But it's the technical specifications that allow for other elements on a page to work. So you all know alternative text. So it'll say image, and then you can choose, oh, I know it's an image, so I'm going to read the alt text. There's other elements that a screen reader might say out loud to them. So in this example, like button, or there might be like different elements if you push a button and something else happens on a page, if it's like a simulation lab or something. It would say like the button if it's, depressed or not on a website. So again, this is a little bit more advanced. You'll see it in the VPAT. In general, no ARIA sometimes is better than bad ARIA. So don't feel like you have to know. If you don't know how to do HTML, you certainly don't need to learn how to do ARIA. Even if you know HTML, ARIA is a little more advanced. It's just an acronym you're going to see. Okay. So yeah, that's ARIA, what ARIA stuff looks like in Cite Improve. All right. Couple more. I only have a few more acronyms that we're going to look through, and then we're going to dive into VPATs more. So WAVE, the WAVE tool is the Web Accessibility Evaluation Toolset. This is an extension that you can use. You are, again, welcome to get this and test this yourself. So it's just a little Chrome plugin. I'm sure it's on other browsers as well. I just always use Chrome. And it can tell you like what the different areas are that there might be errors on a page, or like, hey, good job, it's great, no issues. So overall, this is like not a terrible website. Just another checker out there you might see is the Wave checker. It's like Site Improver Ally, but not, it's more for developers. A developer might use it if they were doing an accessibility audit. Okay. So sometimes in your VPAT, in that ACR, you're going to find that, hey, this is not accessible, or maybe this activity isn't accessible. When that happens, HR or the Student Access Center, what they're going to do is come up with an equally effective alternative access plan. So like if you have to have this software, you have to have this tool, but we have an employee who is blind and they're going to have issues with this, like then an HR or Student Access Center, if it's a student or employee, they're going to come up with the solutions for it. So just because there's problems in the VPAT doesn't mean you can't, not buy something or have your students get it. You're just going to need to know, like, okay, how am I going to fix this? And there will be someone, hopefully, to help you with that. All right, almost done. My two favorite acronyms here. This actually is an acronym. I didn't know what the word numeronym was, but often you're going to see in the world of digital accessibility, Ally. This is separate from our tool Ally, but there's A11Y. That's a numeronym. Super fun. I just love it. You're going to see that when it comes to digital accessibility. If you see this, it doesn't necessarily mean the tool Ally. It just means digital accessibility. Okay. So when do we use VPATs and ACRs? When are we supposed to read them? Well, wherever WCAG applies. So when does WCAG apply? It applies when you develop materials, you're making your content for your class, when you use materials yourself, when you modify materials. So if there's something in like an archive, if your master's thesis is like floating out there on the web and it's in an archive format, it's fine. Like we're not super concerned with archival content. If you're modifying, if you're fixing it, you're probably using it. Or when you procure something, when you buy something. That procure especially applies to the federal government or when federal dollars are being used. Or a school, when students get student loans, that's from the federal government, and they're using it for their textbooks. So one of the biggest ways, I feel like whatever happens in April 2026, I feel like universities are not going to be the first ones who are going to be having issues. I think it's mostly vendors that are really needing to answer the call and step up when it comes to digital accessibility because students are spending their federal dollars on this, that procurement process. Some universities, I'm not super familiar, I've only been back at K-State about a year. I'm not super familiar with our procurement process, but folks might use a VPAT. So if you're having your students buy something or you're buying something, this is a great time to use the prettiest acronym of all, DUMP. So, all right. So let's look in. This is fun. If you like shopping, we're basically looking at how to be a better shopper um, through the VPATs and ACRs. So an ACR is, we've already been over this, it's an explanation of the compliance of a product. It's owned and assessed by the product vendor. Again, it's required for federal contracts. So if there are federal dollars involved, it definitely applies, especially if it's a contract. Again, based on WCAG, and it can be used for all sorts of things, a photocopier, a smartphone, we can apply an ACR, VPAT/ACR. So there's a couple main sections in it. You're going to have your title. It's going to say the name of the product and the version. That's really important. It'll describe the product. What is this product? And then there should be a report date. So I'll show you guys real quick. This is what it looks like when you download it from the ITI. This is available. Anybody can get this. So when a company is going to go fill this out, and let me make that so humans can read it. But again, our laws are only based on 2.1. A lot of VPATs are now looking at 2.2, especially if they have European clients. They're on 2.2. And it tells you a little bit about it. And then basically, yada, yada. If it has all this stuff, if the company sends it to you and it still has all this stuff in it, they didn't do a good job writing it. This is like when you download our syllabus template, we're like, directions on how to use it. Delete this section. You're supposed to delete this section. So if this is in there from a company, that's not what you want. But yeah, you'll have this part at the top. And then it'll basically say level A, double A, or triple A. And then you have a chart, and they will then fill out the chart. If it doesn't pass or if it's an NA, they might have remarks or explanations for it. So they'll then say like, oh, this is level A for 2.1 and 2.2. There's some specifications in there. And then there's also at the bottom a AAA one. Sometimes folks won't fill this out. That's okay. If you're a school for the blind and you were buying something, you would want this section filled out. Or folks with, if you're focusing on a population that had a very specific type of disability, that would be important. So that's what it looks like. And those are our basic sections. All right. So what an ACR is not. It's not the accessibility audit. You do an accessibility audit, you get your VPAT, you do the audit, and then you get the ACR. It is not only for government or education, like Facebook has this, Twitter has this, like there are other folks out there who have VPATs. Again, not only for web products, it's not always accurate. People make mistakes. And it's also not an indication of an A tag compliance, so that authoring. So like WordPress and their example is like, hey, we're accessible to author in, but you could still make really bad content for your users. So that's just an example. I'm not going to dive into that one. All right. So what are the red flags? What are the things you want to make sure you're avoiding? So did they leave all that template information in? Are there lots of empty cells? Did they say that something failed, doesn't support or something, and then didn't offer an explanation? That's not good. And we'll look at lots of examples. Did they produce it themselves? It's not always bad. Microsoft does their own. That's pretty normal. It's Microsoft, like they can handle it. I'm sure they have plenty of people who can do it. But if it's a smaller company and they've done it themselves, I would be a little bit suspicious. If it mentions only screen readers, again, there's lots of different types of assistive technologies out there. If it doesn't mention mobile, I feel like lots of them don't mention mobile, but our students are doing their homework on their phone. They're trying to do activities on the phone or on tablets. It would be nice if they mentioned mobile. If it says not evaluated at AA, at single A or double A, It has to be. It needs to be. Like, what is the point if you're not evaluating it? It's okay if it fails, but just tell me that. Also, specific language. If it says passes or fails, there's specific language. You're going to say supports, partially supports, doesn't support, or NA. Those are the only allowable terms. They say passes or fails, they didn't read the directions. If it's all supports, oh, our product is perfect. Well, I don't know about that. Not exactly. If there's lots of NAs, that would be suspicious. If it's missing giant sections. Um, Again, they might have a third-party company do this for them, and as part of that accessibility audit, they might have left instructions in there, like, hey, you need to fix this, this, and this. If they have like left that in, that means A, they didn't take action and they didn't like clean up the final version of the report. If you're ever asking for something, if the company has one and you ask for an ACR and they're like, no, I'm not going to give it to you until after the contract is signed, suspicious. Don't do that. All right. So examples of red flags. This is Cheesemate. This is the gossip. These are all the companies that we can shame, but you don't know what company they are. So for this one, again, some of these are a little dated. If it's more than a year old, I also don't love that. But there's skipped sections, like there's some very specific sections in there. It needs to say the name of the product and then explain the version. It didn't do that in here. No description of the product present. That's a section that needs to be here. It needs to describe what the product is. So that is not great. Things that were good. So the evaluation methods here were a little bit better. And it does say like, hey, I'm using all of these different softwares. I'm using all of these different browsers. So that is good. Other red flags, if it's not specific enough. So this one is not specific. Evaluation methods used. Conformance to the listed accessibility standards has been evaluated using static analysis tools and manual testing. Like, what manual testing? Did you do keyboard only? Were you doing eye tracking software? What assistive technologies did you use? Did you use NVDA? Did you use JAWS? Were you using... Sometimes folks will only do an iOS. Apple is super accessible, and like lots of folks who are low vision or have ambulatory issues might like using Apple products. So they might say Apple, but if they only test Apple, like that's kind of lame. So they need to say, who did the testing? Like, did people use assistive technologies do it? What assistive technologies were used? They need to be specific. All right, if there's no manual testing, again, we just saw with PowerPoint, that wasn't tested, that wasn't doing it correctly. It wasn't testing because it's those colors correctly for that contrast compliance. If there is no manual testing, like I don't even know why you fill the VPAT out. Like it's not, you need to do some manual testing. It is okay to use some automated, like that's perfectly fine. But you need to have some manual evaluation too. So this one used a queue, which is sort of like a site improve or a wave, and an axe tool, and then used NVDA, but like didn't explain like, oh, how did you test it? Like you manually tested the navigation with NVDA, be specific. All right. Out of date. If the product has changed, it needs to be updated. So if they're like, oh, we did the VPAT for this previous version of the product, like, well, why didn't you fix it? Or if the VPAT is more than a year old, I see a lot of old VPATs. I'm like, have you really not updated your technology in the last year? It's time, it's expensive, it's time consuming to make a VPAT, to make an ACR. But like, did you really not fix your product in the last year? Like, tell me more about that. That's a great question to ask a vendor. All right. Other red flags. If they say VPAT, but they didn't put it in the template. It is that very specific table. Like that is what it is supposed to look like. It's for someone like me or in the Student Access Center so that we know what we're looking for. Oh, there's a student with cerebral palsy in this class. Like I know what lines we have to have a support on. Otherwise, we have an issue. So there's a reason for the template. So if it says VPAT and then it doesn't use the VPAT, that's not great. If it only uses Google Lighthouse, this is again a developer tool like Wave. It is not very robust. When I was in more website world, I didn't use Google Lighthouse. It's kind of like, it's kind of like Wave for Dummies. I just wouldn't really use it. It gives really high scores for content that is really bad. Yeah, talked about that. Again, VPATs, oh, something else to note. VPATs are often PDFs. This is from a website that didn't have a downloadable PDF. Like they didn't download the template and fill it out and then upload it. If they have just put it on the website, like that's a little bit weird. It needs to follow just the basic principles of like the ITI says, I'm using this template. I promise to use it this correct way. I mean, they're not going to get sued for using it the wrong way, but you as a consumer might be curious about it. So this one, like, they had put it on a website and then the website was inaccessible. It was like, oh man, like you should just use the original template. Okay. Again, didn't say how it tested with the manual process. This one only said it tested with that voice over iOS. And I'm like, okay, come on, be a little bit more robust. Um, you don't want to use just one type. There are differences between voice over iOS, NVDA, JAWS. So we need to be more specific. Again, if it contains content from their third party audit recommendations, so like this is from one of somebody's table, it's like, hey, please refactor this. And then they left that in the report and was like, well, did you do it? You should have just done it. You should have fixed it. An overuse of not relevant. So it says text spacing. Text spacing is not relevant. Text spacing is always relevant. It doesn't matter if you have a disability or not. You need the text to have the normal level of spacing. You don't want a lot of leading or too small of leading. Leading is the space between letters. Uh, that's going to be a problem. So if it says NA, it definitely is relevant. Consistent navigation, it needs to be evaluated manually. So when they're saying like, oh, Lighthouse says it was like navigation, which is really important for WCAG 2.2. It's coming. Consistent navigation, reliable navigation. That is really important for 2.2, and it needs to be a human who does it. No AI can do that. Absolutely not. It needs to be a person. Okay, round flags? I don't know. So just because it doesn't have a VPAT, I want you to know it doesn't mean it's not accessible. More and more companies are doing them. StukeNet is one that Mass Comm uses for maybe the mass media folks. It's like an environment for students to make fake social media posts or something. I don't know a lot about the tool. They didn't used to have a VPAT. They just made their VPAT within the last few months. It was pretty accessible before. Again, it's all about authoring. So you can still make bad content. But if you were a student, it was easy to use. It was accessible. Just because it doesn't have a VPAT doesn't mean it's not accessible. They might have some really good accessibility information that just isn't in VPAT format. H5P is a company that we use. I think they probably have a robust VPAT out there somewhere, but they honestly have a better accessibility page that just breaks it down by activity because it's like a million products in one. So it's okay, but just know what you're looking at. This is another example. This is a company, microbiology is moving online and they were considering using. They didn't end up using it. Um, so this is like an example. This is okay. I don't love it. So it's like trying to be a VPAT, but it's not using that PDF. Um, and then one thing that it highlighted. So keyboard navigations, all major functions of this tool can be accessed with a mouse. But the virtual lab, which is why they wanted to use the tool, was for the lab. You have to use a mouse. You're you're sort of like boxing out a lot of students from using it. Anyone with cerebral palsy, anyone with ambulatory issues, anybody who's, missing fingers, folks who are blind. There's a million and one people who don't use a mouse. And when you say you can't do your homework assignment unless you use a mouse, not so great. So it says there's sort of these two statements are pretty incongruent. It looks like a really cool tool. There are some things it does well, but saying you have to have a mouse to do the lab part of it, not so great. But they're not getting it. They're going with something way better, which we'll look at as well. All right. So try some manual testing. Um, when I was making this PowerPoint, I was looking at NPR, it was the Olympics, and there was a pop-up window that came up. So do some manual testing. Can you, so this is standard 2.1.1, can you use a keyboard? You can do this yourself. Can you tab through the information just using the tab button? If a pop-up window comes up, can you close it using your keyboard navigation only? Can you tab over to the X? NPR, federal government, hey, you could do it. They're getting lots of dollars from the federal government. They were accessible. Um, if there are issues, are they noted in the ACR? Doesn't mean you can't buy it, but like, did they put that in there? They say, hey, it works, except for this one time. Um, I've got two more examples for us to look at. So again, that pause, stop, hide. You guys have seen me do this example a million times if you've been to one of my presentations. This is my favorite GIF ever. Um, it's the best GIF ever. So within Microsoft, it's the best, guys. Uh, this is going to run a couple of times. I was trying to make it bigger, but it's not. I can pause it. So you need to be able to pause it. If you see some GIFs or some web content out there that has videos in it, like can you pause it? Can you hide it? So that'll stop running eventually. I'm bored, so I'm pausing it, but it has that pause button. So GIFs within Microsoft are accessible. Some things that would not be accessible, or one that would, Salina is accessible. Let's talk about Salina. So like on their homepage, it was really popular a few years ago for there to be auto playing videos at the top of your university's website. Um, and they would just run till the end of time. They slowed websites down, honestly, with that auto run, which then impacts your SEO score. But this one, there's a video and you have to actually hit play for it to work. And I can pause it. So that's really makes it more accessible for folks with photosets of epilepsy, ADHD. Like, I don't know if you remember 15 years ago, like you would open up a web page or just start yelling at you and videos would start. That's illegal. You can't do that. Like, that is very, very bad. Um, so Salina is accessible. You can also, I'll show you. So when I'm just hitting the tab button right now. So I just hit the tab button and it said jump to main content. So I'm going to hit enter. Oh, and now I'm going to jump to the main content. So this will be more important with WCAG 2.2. There's a little tiny box around request information. 2.2 wants that box to be bigger and clear. It's for people with ADHD. Heaven forbid you have cerebral palsy and ADHD at the same time. So like that focus order is really important. So we're just tabbing through and you can see the colors change. That's probably more accessible. That one's really good. But yeah, I can tab through this website. So just being able to do that makes it more accessible. Meow Wolf, which is a private company, so they're not as concerned. But Meow Wolf, this video is a little nuts too, because Meow Wolf's nuts. But the video starts right away. There's no pause feature for it. Oh, the pause feature was hiding. Oh, the pause feature was hiding behind here. I don't like that. But then there are some like other elements that run on the page all the time. That's not accessible. So even though there's slight movements in the background, um, we don't actually want that. So I didn't realize it had a pause button. It was hiding behind this. So I don't think I could tab to the pause button when I did it earlier. So do a little manual testing. You can do it. I believe in you. I'm on the wrong page. Okay, so green flags. This is what we're looking for. Clearly describes what they're assessing. It only uses that language. Supports, partially supports, does not support, not applicable. It says pass fail, boo, they didn't do it right. I like it when it's written by someone under the vendor, like someone who's trained in doing it. There's companies who they just write these for other folks. And refers to existing accessibility tools, processes, and assistive technologies. It's not just saying, I used Chrome. I just used iOS. Like it's actual assistive technologies. So blank cells, I said earlier that lots of blank cells are bad, but if it says supports and there's a blank cell, that's okay. This is from Microsoft. Like Microsoft is a pretty good tool in general. So this is specifically the VPAT for Microsoft Teams. It doesn't have audio descriptions for pre-recorded content in there. There's not really audio, just there's really not videos in Microsoft Teams that are just there. So that's why it says not applicable. So it's okay if there's a blank for those two. Okay, so again, promised you the treasure map. This is your summary. This is your take home. What do you need to do? When you're designing a course, when you're picking a new textbook, ask for the VPAT or ACR for the book. If you say VPAT, they'll probably know what you mean right off the bat. Or ACR, or you can just put it like that. You want to do this at the beginning. So I'll show you a McGraw-Hill example here in a second. McGraw-Hill has accessibility stuff on their website. You want it for your particular book or lab or tool. Ask them for the VPAT. Look if it's the correct ITI template. It'll probably be 2.4. 2.5 came out in last year, but are they using the right template or is it just a weird website? Does it reflect the correct product version? Has there been a newer edition of the book, but they sent it for you for a previous version? Like, talk to them about that. Is it older than 12 months? So those are some of the things we want to look for and really easy things to ask them for. Like, hey, this is older than 12 months. Why is that? Evaluate it critically. If it says all supports, I don't love that. Like there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be areas where there are problems. A mix can indicate transparency from the company. Prioritize manual usability testing over automation. There's got to be some manual testing. And then for you, you can assess the risk based on your impact. Again, if there's some problems in the VPAT, that's for you to assess. You're like, oh, I'm having 3 grad students a year do this in my rat lab or something like that I'm getting federal money for. Like that might be different than, oh, I'm having 200 students a year use this textbook. Every student in the class needs to use this. So assess based on your overall impact. If there are issues, if there's things you're concerned about, ask for an accessibility roadmap, particularly if there's a contract, which, this is more about course materials, but ask them for their roadmap. Hey, what's your plan for fixing this? When are you going to fix it? April 2026, by the time you ask them this, might have come and gone. Be like, what's up? What are you going to do? How are you going to fix this? Tell me more. All right, so real quick, I'll show you our good example. This is a good VPAT. So this is from McGraw-Hill for a specific tool. It is old, so it's using the 2.4 one. 2.5 hadn't come out yet, not the biggest deal. I wish that they had updated it. It'd be nice if there was an updated version. But one of the things, it says not applicable, like, oh, hey, there's just not videos in here. It's okay. That's fine. And then, info and relationships. So there are like 2 activities in here. One was skeletal muscle contraction. It announces the labels of the diagram all at once. Well, that's not helpful. You want to be able to tab through it. And then this other one, and then in the photosynthesis, the chemical equation is announced incorrectly by the screen reader. So specifically, I would just be like, hey, McGraw-Hill, did you fix that yet? Did you fix that chemical equation thing since May 2023? It's been 3 years. Just ask them. That skeletal muscle tissue thing, I bet is probably just a pain in the butt. So if a student who was blind was taking this course, we'd be like, okay, we need an alternate activity for this one muscle tissue lab. So it's useful to someone. You could still use the textbook, but now someone from the Student Access Center could be like, oh, we got to substitute. We got to do something a little bit different for this particular activity. So that's it. That's all she wrote. You guys have questions? Let us know. We can talk right now. You can email us at idteam@ksu.edu. Tomorrow, we're talking about closed captions. We do similar trainings to the TLC on digital accessibility most Thursdays this semester. I had the audacity to take vacation in April, but those are at noon. You can just join us on Zoom. And then we have office hours where instructional designers are there to help you with all your questions. So, do you guys have questions now?
I do have a question, so I will throw that out there. Um, so we work with a couple of programs that are integrated into Canvas for student teachers that do like course lesson planning, that sort of thing on it.
Mhm.
Um, if it's a contract that has to go through purchasing, does IT do this VPAT review, or are we in the colleges responsible for doing that kind of technical review for items that we use? Do you know?
I don't know. I know they look at it. I know IT looks at it. There's not someone who I as far as I know, there's not a dedicated person. Some universities have a dedicated contracts person who usually look at like indemnification and VPATs. Those will be like their two things. Are we going to get sued? And are we going to get sued for accessibility? So I don't think someone like that exists at K-State. I do know IT does look at the VPATs. But it's something that you might want to look at too as you're, looking through it. Like they're not that hard to read. If you want me to help you look at it, like I can help you look at it. And again, you may pick something that's somewhat inaccessible, but what's the impact on it? Or, oh, it's just this like one little thing. So, yeah, they look at it. I don't know what they do with that information.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks
We
for the
need a
information.
procurement person here.
Right.
Thanks, Cindy.
Okay, well, if nobody has any other questions for Christina, thank you, Christina. It was super informational, super tough to wrap your head around. There's so much to think about. But obviously, digital accessibility isn't going anywhere, and it's all about improving learning opportunities for everyone. So, um, it's a really great topic. So, thank you for that. Just a quick note before we go. So I'll remind you all the post-event survey. Please take a moment to fill that out if you would. It helps us out a lot. My colleague Kara Matu will drop that link in the chat. Next week, we have Dr. Lisa Melander from the Department of Sociology. She is talking about the six different types of applied learning. So it'll be another very hands-on, very actionable type of PD series talk. And again, just a reminder for the Sodal Showcase that's happening on Monday, May 11th. It's the Monday of finals week, and we're putting out a call today on all our social media channels and in the chat here for anybody who'd like to participate. And we would love to have you. So please take a moment to fill out those proposals if you have interested in showcasing some of your teaching and learning work. Um, Apart from that, as Don always said, I will agree. There's not a lot of recognition in higher education. So, from the TLC perspective and from the grad student perspective, thank you for everything you do. And we see you, we appreciate you, and have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye bye.